Get right to what America is talking about, and it is the breaking news. Tonight, chaos at the airports, missed paychecks, and uncertainty over food stamps. It is day 38 of the government shutdown saga, and things just went from bad to worse after the FAA's decision to slash flights at the nation's busiest airports.
Would you be open to getting a backup ticket?
You had to have backup money. I don't have that.
It's absurd. I think it's a complete failure of government.
People are really hurting out here, and it's not just the traveling public, but it's affecting the whole economy, and you people are to blame.
Major airlines have already grounded hundreds of planes for tomorrow after cuts today triggered thousands of delays and cancellations. Now, in the meantime, millions of Americans are living in limbo as President Trump escalates his fight over food stamps in the courts. He's trying to get out of fully funding those November benefits, and just a short time ago, the Supreme Court let him pause full payments for now. But a temporary pause is still a pause for those who need to feed their families. So what are the chances that we'll see a resolution anytime soon? Well, Chuck Schumer says that the ball is now in Republicans' court.
Democrats are offering a very simple compromise. Leader Thune just needs to add a clean one-year extension of the ACA tax credits to the CR so that we can immediately address rising health care costs. That's not a negotiation. It's an extension of current law.
To which the majority leader responded by saying that is a non-starter. Senate lawmakers will return to session tomorrow, and Trump is urging them to stay in Washington until a deal is reached, while the president himself jetted off to his Mar-a-Lago vacation home. Joining us in our fifth seat at the table is Natasha Sarin. This fight over the food stamps is happening right now, and the Supreme Court basically said, we'll hold off on forcing you to make those payments while the lower court decides. But the optics for the American people is that the Trump administration is fighting all the way to the Supreme Court to not pay food stamps. That seems like a bad narrative, politically speaking.
Let's also get some data out there. The average family of four at the federal poverty level is $40,000, right? So you already are working poor to then need this extra government assistance. And what the government has been giving these families comes out to about $6 a day per person. So this is a drop in the bucket compared to the defense budget, compared to, in the private sector, the $1 trillion a year that Elon Musk is going to make. And it makes a very big difference in American families. And these programs have changed America, I would say for the better, given that this is the type of program that got the United States out of the Great Depression, made sure that the excesses of the Gilded Age didn't stick around. And that's kind of where we're back at right now with these types of events.
So the public is saying a pox on both of their houses in terms of the polling. But at the same time, again, they're hearing Trump and the administration saying, we'll figure out funding for all these other priorities, but on food stamps, they are absolutely refusing to find $9 billion, which is a relatively small amount of money in the scope of the budget to fund it. I think both things can be true at the same time. And I wonder if you think that this is a mistake to fight over this one issue on food stamps.
Well, Abby, I think it's a mistake to sit here and say that the food stamp program makes Americans better off. In 2000, there were only 17 million Americans on food stamps. Today, there are 42 million of them, 4 million of whom are refugees, are migrants in this country, whether they have TPS or refugee status. It doesn't matter. I don't think it's a good measure of the economy that more and more Americans rely on the government. What I think President Trump wants to do is build an economy where everyone can earn a dignified market wage so they don't have to rely on the government to feed their family.
But they're not doing that. Can I just say, I have personal experience with the SNAP program. People in my immediate family get it. There's a huge misconception that people don't work and they get them. There's also this horrible talking point that we're giving food stamps to people who are here, undocumented migrants, which is also not true. 4 out of 5 households who receive food stamp benefits have an older person, someone with a disability, or a child. Now, imagine this. The Supreme Court is saying Trump can pause this. So if he is winning, who's losing are hungry children. Also, I will tell you, the people in my family who get food stamp benefits, I subsidize. They get such little money. There are all kinds of things you can't buy, cleaning products. Think about everything you use on a daily basis if you don't have income. You're saying if people, they should make a livable livable wage, they'd be able to buy that. Well, they can't do that. And if we're looking at inflation, where people are spending over $200 more a month on groceries, thanks to his horrible immigration policies, thanks to his tariffs, then how are people supposed to do that? There are college graduates getting these benefits who are going hungry right now, who can't feed their children. The only answer could be,
Here's the thing. This is not by accident. This is part of, very clearly written out in Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, cutting summer feeding programs because apparently feeding hungry children in the summer is not a great idea. That wouldn't boost the economy.
James respond, because
I want to agree with Tiffany 100%. I grew up for a short period of time on the food stamp program as well, so I can sympathize with that. The truth of the matter is we have to have an honest conversation. We are all for, I think, at this table, a safety net. But the safety net cannot become a safety couch, a safety jacuzzi, and then a safety temper heating.
These are the talking points from the Reagan administration of that.
Who is living in a safety jacuzzi right now? They're hungry.
I mean, James, I take that is an argument, that a conversation that needs to be had. But in the moment, the conversation actually that we're having is not about whether food stamps should exist. It's about whether people who are currently on the program should get the funding that for food that they're allotted under the law. So that other conversation is for another time. The question is right now, people are on this program. As Tiffany said, the statistics bear out. Children, elderly people, and people with disabilities are predominantly the recipients of food stamps. The president is making a statement himself that he does not think that this should be funded. And I wonder, not just from a political perspective, but just from a human perspective, when that message gets out to regular people who are Americans, many of them his own voters, that just seems really callous.
Yeah, I think there's probably a bunch of SNAP recipients that were voters for Donald Trump. My home state of Pennsylvania, you saw Josh Shapiro put another $5 million into the budget to throw another $5 million up to cover this stopgap measure. It's really a legal issue. I mean, you just saw Justice Jackson come and stay that order from the lower court so that the circuit court could evaluate it. And it really is, can a court compel the federal government to go to the mattresses, if you will, when the money hasn't been appropriated yet? So it's really a fundamental question about appropriations versus this whole policy debate that we're having at this table about SNAP donors.
I just want to say that this is the first disruption of SNAP benefits in the program's 61-year history. And so, as like a
also the
human
longest shutdown in government history.
Many of us are parents of young children. The idea that parents are going to sleep tonight not knowing whether or not they're going to be able to feed their children tomorrow and maybe making decisions not to eat their own meals in order to do that, that's a horrible thing to be happening in the richest country in the world. And I just think we should just all acknowledge that.
Pass a clean bill, and I think the problem's solved.
As an economist, what I can tell you is that these consequences of the longest government shutdown in history are going to reverberate on these kids who are going to learn less well in school because they're not being able to get nutrition that they need, and whose parents are going to be under the stress of not being able to provide for them. So I just think we should grapple with what some of the choices that policymakers are making from the perspective of their likely economic impact, which we're already starting to see.
So the Democrats should stop holding the government hostage.
It's not, no. There is a deal on the table right now that Republicans can accept. They won't do that because they don't want to extend 1 year of subsidies to make sure that people have affordable health care. So you're going to have people who are deciding, do I spend $500 to go to a doctor or do I buy groceries? And those same people are the people you guys are saying are living in a safety jacuzzi. And some of these people are your voters. More than half the people in the marketplace live in Republican congressional districts. A part of me feels like you're getting the government you voted for. But the human in me can see the humanity in these people more so than I've seen other people be able to extend and say they don't deserve to be without health care. And that's a serious issue.
Agreed.
Tiffany, but just be completely honest. For everyone at home listening right now, you deserve to know the full context. The full context is this. These Obamacare subsidies were created by Joe Biden in March of 2021 with the American Rescue Plan. The Democrats pushed them through on an emergency basis. And as we know, Jim, there's nothing more permanent in Washington, D.C. than a temporary emergency measure. This is not about affordable health care. This is about dealing with the pandemic at the time. No,
but
you have Marjorie Taylor Greene acknowledging that Republicans have lost the narrative on talking about health care across the board. The number one issue that undecided voters, all voters of all stripes care about is health care. And I will absolutely, as someone who served in the Obama administration, tell you that Obamacare increased accessibility. It did not increase affordability. So there is a problem with the program.
So the
But at
Affordable
end-
Care
but
Act
at
did not
the
work.
end
The
of the
Affordable
day-
Care Act did not work.
At the end of the day, you
It's very popular
have people
among the
now,
Republicans.
you have a Congress in place, that a majority Republican Congress that has decided to make the message choose between health care and hunger. That is a terrible message.
Okay, one second. The American people, we've asked them in some polling that's been ongoing. It's pretty much evenly split about whether or not they think that the subsidies should be extended. And that seems about where the country is on this. There are a lot of Americans who do want them to be extended. But when you compare it to 2019, when Donald Trump and Republicans shut down the government over a border wall, 71% of Americans at that time said that the government should be reopened without funding the border wall. In other words, this healthcare issue is a lot more potent than the border wall issue, which, by the way, Republicans shut the government down over this issue. And it's because Americans are actually facing extreme increases in their healthcare costs. And we can argue about whether Obamacare is good or bad, but that is just a fact that everybody acknowledges. And Republicans acknowledge will need to be dealt with. I don't know that it works to say to the American people, we need to win on the principle of this, when at the end of the day, you all also understand that you're probably going to have to fix this problem one way or another.
100% have to fix the problem. Increases up to 80% on premiums. That needs to be fixed. And there's no question that this was meant to be a temporary measure. Democrats couldn't get the votes to make it a permanent measure when they passed it the first time. But now it's in both of their courts. The Democrats are holding this hostage over this one particular issue that Republicans have come to the table and said, we'll fix it. But pass a clean bill and we'll fix it. Thune has come to the table and said it.
I mean, I think
Senator
part of the
McCormick
issue
has
is
come
a
to the
lack
table and said it needs to be
fixed. But some of the issue is a lack of trust, because this is an administration that has just taken money from the budget and decided to slash it after Congress has appropriated it. So if you're a Democrat, it is kind of hard.
But look where they started. It was a total money grab from the beginning. Now we're all the way down to just this one single issue of extending it for a year so that we can have this fight a year from now. Figure it out right now.
Nobody has clean hands in this, okay? Republicans have passed tax cuts.
Of course.
That are temporary. And then when they are set to expire, they have then said that we can't possibly let them expire, because then people would experience taxes increase.
Absolutely. I think there's Republicans agreeing.
Nobody's hands are clean here in that sort of budgetary.
Of course, but think of it this way. Growing up, my mom always cooked dinner. My mom and dad would fight about healthcare all the time, about what plan we were going to have for our family. If we came home one night and my mom said, I'm not going to cook dinner, I'm not going to feed the kids tonight until we can agree on a healthcare plan for our family for the next year, would that be okay? Of course not. So listen, but
you'd
Abby,
have to ask your mom.
Abby,
But
hold on, but Tiffany, with all due respect, just hold on a second. John Thune, who I'm no fan of this country club Republican style that's rejected the middle class for far too long. What John Thune has said is, reopen the government, and then let's have an earnest debate.
Were you here in 2019?
I was alive, yeah.
When Republicans shut down the government and said we are not going to when the president actually said, I am not going to fund the government until I get my border wall. Were you here when that happened?
I was.
So then do you remember that this actual tactic of shutting down the government in order to get a negotiation on an ancillary issue is one that has been with us for some time?
I agree.
And that Republicans have repeatedly used to shut down the government during a Republican administration.
I am not going to be a defender of the do-nothing Republicans or the know-nothing Democrats. Congress has a record low approval rating for a reason. Americans at home are doing all the right things. They're working harder than ever, and they can't get by. But the truth is, the government shutdown is the responsibility of Democrats at this moment in time.
How?
To come
There's a deal on the table.
The deal on the table.
Natasha, let me let you get a word in, and then we're going to go to break.
As an advocate of doing things for the working class, I'm just kind of stupefied about how thus far this evening you have advocated in favor of not providing food benefits to hungry children, allowing premiums to go up to double for many Americans in this country.
Double compared to when?
Double compared to the life that they are experiencing right now. And honestly,
double
this is
compared to the emergency.
Can I just say one thing, James? This is a president that just won an election in 2024 because the American people were frustrated that the costs that they were experiencing every day when they went to the grocery store were too high. The idea that in response to that election, you want to enact the most inflationary policies in our lifetimes with these
Joe
tariffs.
Biden inflation was 5.9% over those 4 years since President Trump took office. Headline CPI has been 1.8%.
We're going to hit pause on this because we have a lot more to discuss on the economy. The president says any talk of economic trouble is a con job by the Democrats, but the majority of Americans say that they are seeing prices going up. We're going to debate the hotly contested affordability question next. Plus, the defense secretary is ramping up weapons production to war footing, but at the same time, he's showing some career brass the door. We'll debate that strategy next.